In America, we're usually about 20 years behind the research.
This is not news to anybody that we have more sick care than health care.
Most people spend something like $80,000 in healthcare costs in just the last week of their life.
It's so common that we see people just like pour their whole heart and soul into their business, but they don't necessarily take care of their health.
Yeah, I don't know what they say, 60's the new 40, or maybe 60's the new 30. I don't know.
Hello, and welcome to the Liberty Spenders podcast. We are Kurt and Kristin Ludhart, your hosts and co-founders of the Prosper Group, an agency that's helped raise over $500 million and help elect over 100 members of Congress, 15 governors, 15 U.S. senators, and 1 president. And now, in addition to helping political candidates get elected, we're helping your business get elected by answering this question. What if you could exponentially grow your audience by tapping into a lucrative and engaged audience that we call Liberty Spenders? Liberty Spenders are politically conservative or faith-based consumers, and they're looking to buy from businesses and brands that align with their values.
Our guest today is Cade Archibald. He's an entrepreneur, COO, and co-founder of East West Health and Go Wellness, where he combines his passion for integrated health and longevity with his expertise in sales and operations. His personal health journey, which I'm sure we'll talk about today, losing 50 plus pounds and transforming his lifestyle, inspired him to revolutionize healthcare. And in 2013, he partnered with his brother Reagan, which is a name we love on this show, to create an organization dedicated to holistic, results-based health and longevity. He's got a really cool new brand, which we'll get into, agelessfuture.com, powered by East West Health. But we're just happy to have you on, Cade.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm biased. We're going to get into everything that you do, but I am a customer. So I can speak firsthand to the awesome sauce that your company brings to people. And I am just really jazzed for people to learn. This is about health and wellness. And so this is going to be a great episode for people to dive into. We have a lot on our plates as business owners, entrepreneurs, just anybody. And energy and wellness and health is so critically important. So I'm really excited that you agreed to join us.
Yeah. And I think, for your listeners out there, it's so common that we see people just like pour their whole heart and soul into their business, but they don't necessarily take care of their health. And that's where we can come in and make it a lot easier and get that energy level up, because that's one thing that it's not a renewable resource. If it, like your energy, once you expend it, it's done. And trying to get it back is sometimes a challenge. So yeah, love it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. We there were a lot of things we didn't know about health until we met you and your brother. And this has now been, time flies, doesn't it? It's probably been since November of 23 when we would have met for the first time. Mike Koenig's introduced us. And we started learning about things like peptides and acupuncture, regenerative therapies, stuff that seemed like space age technology to us. But that's what you guys specialize in. And, I know it's a game changer for folks who want to spend their energy living and not dying, particularly in our, medical system, which is all about hospitals and drugs. And, but, talk about that a little bit. Introduce our audience to some of the areas that you guys really dig into for people.
Yeah. Yeah. So the organization's called East West Health, and Reagan he started it, founded it originally in 2004. So we've been around for over 20 years. And then, going through my own health experience, it was like complete game changer. I was completely different career path, more in kind of corporate. I was very entrepreneurial, but I was working for a big corporation, and I was just like plugging away, working really hard and not taking care of my health. And yeah, I reached out to Reagan, was like, hey, I need some help here. I'd been going to CrossFit, doing all these crazy exercises and trying different diets and just wasn't getting anywhere. And within like, it was 90 days, I lost 30 pounds, got my brain back. That was my biggest thing is I get home from work and just be blasted and couldn't didn't have the energy or the mental power to really like be present with my kids and my wife. And so that was a huge game changer to just get the brain back. And then over the course of about 90 days, lost quite a bit more weight, and just got really amped and excited about health and longevity, and really looking at labs and how you can impact, like through peptides, nutrition, and different lifestyle things, you can really impact your physiology in a big way. And everyone's physiology is a lot different. And so when we can customize it and create it unique for that individual, oh man, it can be a game changer. And so, yeah, what we've done, originally East West started out as kind of like a Eastern and Western medicine approach, where we take some of the ancient wisdom from you know, acupuncture, herbs, some of these Chinese, old Chinese medicine proverbs, and merge that with some of the really cool innovations of Western medicine. We definitely take more of a natural approach, but we also, we have medical providers and everything on our team, as well as acupuncturists that work together to create really robust protocols and plans that get long lasting results for people. And so, yeah, we utilize a lot of peptides. We do a lot with stem cells and regenerative medicine. There's
Mhm.
just like some fascinating things that continually come out, research wise, from stem cells as well as peptides. Like there's new peptides being created probably as we speak. There's a
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
new thread of peptides that you'll probably hear about in a couple months. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really exciting field to be in, and it's really fun to work with high powered individuals that, really just want to be at their peak performance, physically, mentally, energy wise, and as well as career. Like we love fueling entrepreneurs like you guys, and Kristin, just putting together an amazing organization here, and helping, thousands, hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs build their business. And we want to do the same contribution. Ours is just a little different. Ours is more on the health end of things.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, that was one of the things I felt like I recognized from the very beginning. I'm getting my medical information either from the stuff I learned when I was in high school, in school, right? We had the little food pyramid.
Food pyramid. Wow.
Big fat
Yeah,
lie.
yeah. And then,
We now know.
yeah, or also from the medical establishment, right? Which I think loves the idea that we're all on their one drug or the other, right? Let's get everybody on ADHD drugs and some sort of antidepressant. And with you guys, that was one of my first experiences with the idea of maybe the information we're getting from the big guys isn't the right information. And, you know, I'm sure that's where we're getting kind of this whole RFK Jr. kind of Maha thing too in the political environment is, hey, there's better information out there than what we're getting from the guys who want to profit upon us being sick.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And I think even, like looking at peptides, they're a pharmaceutical, they're compounded through a pharmacy. But what's cool about them, they're very natural based. So peptides are naturally occurring in the body. But even then, like we're seeing scrutiny from the FDA's put certain peptides that are extremely safe on their kind of Cat 2 and Cat 3 list, which just means they send out this list to pharmacies saying, "Hey, we advise against compounding any of these they call it API, or it's like pharmaceutical ingredients." So they've really, and what's even more insane is pretty soon after that, we'll start seeing clinical trials of those same peptides on big pharma. So, there's definitely some financial incentives for the big guys in there that have some sway and influence. But what I'm really, really excited about is RFK coming in with the Maha movement. And, I don't know if you guys saw his blast. I think it was like pretty soon after he got elected. He said, he mentioned, I don't remember the exact quote, but he specified like stem cells and peptides in his big tweet like his announcement. It's like, hey, if you're getting in the way of these things, watch out. It was kind of a warning shot to the FDA saying, hey, like let's let some good happen in the healthcare world. That's been really liberating and exciting, but yeah, still waiting for some changes there, but it does seem like the landscape politically is going to go in the right direction as opposed to in the past. It's just been so I like it's heavily regulated, but it's very one sided to where if you're following the typical system of especially for doctors, just, you see a patient, you prescribe a drug, you diagnose and then prescribe a drug. Like you're in that window and you just keep that cycle going. Versus, I think the real way people can achieve health is a lot more holistic than just a simple medication or a drug, or even a lot. Like I think we can get pretty simplistic when it comes to health. We want to do all these kind of clinical trials and find that one component that makes the biggest difference. And what we've seen over and over is like one component only makes a small difference. But when you can figure out what that individual needs and stack on the right needs, oh man, that's where the results go to the ceiling. Like they just fly through the ceiling.
Well, holistic care. And, this is not news to anybody that we have more sick care than health care. And, we have a crazy messed up incentive structure. And, the amount of funding when you think about, my gosh, like why are these big companies running all these ads for different drugs? And do people really go into their doctor and ask for them to prescribe these things? But from talking to people who work in that space, I mean, it is heavily to influence, news and media organizations. And so without getting like deep onto that side trail, I just think um, it is important for anybody listening. We have to take health into our own hands. We have to take responsibility for our bodies and our health. And that means really being thoughtful about who we select to give us advice, and not being afraid to ask questions. And what do you know about this? Are you following new trends? What are you seeing that's new? Because your care is really only as good as the providers and how much they're wanting to stay up on what is new and coming out. And so I think there's so many, to your point, regulations, and there's a lot of burden put on practitioners and a lot of doctors. They're finding it very difficult to even make a living being family doctors. And so that's where I think companies like yours are really important to supplement and give us a wider view of what's possible beyond just a traditional doctor, your typical family doctor relationship. That's my opinion. You guys could take it with a grain of salt. But that's what I have found to be true and why I've been such a happy customer of yours for over a year now.
I think the traditional family doctor, yeah, it's definitely transitioned, especially as there's less and less just, individual doctors that are owners of the clinic versus these big hospital systems pretty much just buying everybody out, and then they really run, the healthcare thing. Because doctors are so amazing. I work with a lot of different doctors. From, Go Wellness is more, we help consult and coach doctors on how they can implement certain things, versus, East West Health is where we work with clients. We call them clients as opposed to patients, and to achieve their health goals. But I think um like doctors are put into this system where they're just expected to follow that. That's what they've been trained to as well. But you go back 30 to 50 years ago, and it was completely different. They actually spent time with their patients because they and they still care. It's just they would spend some significant amount of time with them to uncover what was going on, and then
Oh, yeah. It's
yeah,
just the
make
incentive structure and what you have to
yeah.
do to make money. So 100%, this is not a, criticism of doctors who have spent, so much time and are giving their lives to serve patients. So on that note, let's dig into, for people to get more specifics about how you work with clients. Talk about your blood tests. What's the process that a customer or client would go through with you? I know it starts with that, and then just walk people through your standard process.
Yeah, so typically the first thing we wanna do is really, get to the get to the root of what's going on, and so we work with clients that, maybe their health's pretty, like, ideal, like, they're doing a lot of things for their health, and they're just wanting another 5, 10, 20% on energy, cognition, and just maximize their performance. On the flip side, we'll work with people that, have some pretty serious chronic illness. But the first step for everyone is just get the right testing. So we call it our longevity blood lab. And this is about 100 different biomarkers from, your organs and systems. We'll look at liver, kidney functions. We'll look at uh, there's some stress indexes, especially with our entrepreneurs and business owners. We'll see, we can actually see how much stress you're putting on your body and how it's impacting your physiology. And then we'll look at different hormones. Like hormones are typically like an afterthought in traditional medicine. You'll get a panel, and usually it's just some basic stuff. We really dive deep, so then we can uncover what's going on, and it's crazy. Even the individuals that come in that appear super healthy, they still have these different interferences. So the way we look at labs, it's a lot more fine tuned. So we're looking at optimal levels of labs as opposed to just looking for diseases. And so we have tighter parameters that we're focused on, and then we can identify different interferences that maybe someone has. Then from there, we design a full comprehensive uh, protocol. This could include specific peptides, nutrition, lifestyle. So, and then we have fitness advisor and and uh, and health integrators that help kind of integrate the whole process. You can work with our fitness advisors to dial in your nutrition and your fitness plan. And then, yeah, essentially, we work with people all over the world, um, and it's a pretty simple, seamless process. But yeah, it all starts with that lab, and then that'll essentially we'll be able to discover what's going on underneath, and then we can utilize that. Maybe there's more labs that we need to uncover some other issues if there's something we see in those initial blood labs. But yeah, we'd love to do some threat detection initially, figure out what's some potential issues that may be coming up in the future, or obviously we can uncover if there's something big going on at the moment.
Your thoroughness is absolutely true. I mean, I went in, it's like, how many vials of blood are they gonna take? Just prepared as they're like, draining my no, I'm kidding. But you're absolutely testing for so many more things than I would get in a standard checkup. And so I can speak to that. Just the amount of things that you're paying attention to is truly phenomenal. I've learned so much throughout the process.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. It's a fun process to go through. I go through it myself at least 6 months. I'm doing my labs and getting my protocol dialed in, because that's the one thing that I notice. If I go too long and I haven't ran my labs and updated my protocol, it's like, all right, I gotta get things dialed in again.
Well, uh, Kristen's right. I mean, I saw the tests when they came in, and it's not 2 pages, it's 6. And very valuable. But to your point, I mean, we're at a point now in today's world that we don't have to rely on just generic advice or just generic solutions. We can personalize based on your own needs and individual. And so that blood work with all the different, I think you said 113. Is that what you said? 113 things?
It's right around
Um,
100 markers, yeah. And then
yeah,
depending on if something else is going on, we might add on a few things right there off the bat.
yeah. Which gives us, I mean, to go back to what you said at the beginning, if you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking, I'm not sick, right? Or I'm, which is again, the only reason you'd see a doctor previously, right? I'm sick. I'm not feeling great. But you can uh, do the blood test with you guys and find out, well, man, there's an opportunity to optimize. You can get more energy. You can get your brain fog to go away and not just accept, well, I'm 45, so of course I feel a
Yeah,
little less
that
energetic,
is
right?
I love that you bring that up because that's, like, one of our, yeah, the biggest I don't wanna say pet peeves, but we hear it all the time, and it's just false, like, "Oh, I'm just getting old, it's just my age, I'm 45 or I'm 50," or whatever that is. And that doesn't have to be the reality, right? There's so many things, especially with technology the way it is today, diagnostics, and then there's just these robust treatments that, our belief, we can make your next decade the best decade because, you have your health, you get more energy, you can just upgrade things as opposed to, we hear it all the time where, "Oh, I'm just getting old," and that becomes kind of the common excuse.
Yeah, I don't know what they say. 60's the new 40, or maybe 60's the new 30. I don't know.
I'm crazy enough to believe that, you know, uh, even though people are living longer, a lot of times they're not healthier. I plan to live long and healthy. Now that's up, I have to do a number of things and be disciplined in how I live my life to make that happen. But I know for me, one thing is there's so many people that are interested in this and they're trying to do it. They're on their own, which, by the way, is easier now because there is more information available. But it can also at the same time feel overwhelming. Who do I trust? I don't know. There's so many things being recommended and peptides are the new hot thing. And so I need to work with someone who I can follow me along in this journey and that we can work on this together. And that's what I think is so incredible about the platform. So can you speak to that more? So you have the labs, you're working with clients on that, they're getting that, building a protocol. But there's an opportunity for a long-term relationship. I'd love to hear you speak a little bit more about that so people get an understanding of what the possibilities are.
So, yeah, for us, we work with clients very very long, like, we have lifetime clients. One of our core values is lifetime relationships, and we love, creating just the really sincere, fun experiences and relationships with our clients, and so, clients work with us. Typically, initially, it'll be like a 6 to 12 month, protocol and program that we put together, but then we continue to follow our process of running labs and diagnostics and figuring out what's that next step because the one thing that we're trying to do is that aging is actually a condition. They've identified that as a disease and it doesn't slow down. Like we can't control chronologically how things progress, but what we can control is continually doing little things that help impact our health, that then essentially we look at your biological age versus your chronological age, and our goal is to have every one of our clients under 10 years or more younger than what their chronological age is. And so, if someone's got that same vision and goal, and they wanna have the optimal energy levels, cognitive function, and really match health span with lifespan, because to your point earlier, Kristen, where if, we just live longer, but those last 10 years are spent in a home and you're, like, non-mobile and just on 10 different medications just to kind of be able to breathe, that's not living. So we wanna give you your life back, especially at the end. Your end years should be, like, the golden, most productive, super inspired years so you can leave the legacy that you wanna live or leave, and so that's really what our goal is. We have a concept called compressed morbidity. So you have like your years, you're super healthy throughout life. And we got this concept. We have really cool influential grandparents. One of our great grandparents, he was out like, working in the yard and super mobile. He'd even, I think he had lost a leg in the war. Like, it had a lot of different health things that like came up against him, but he was really good at keeping good health resilience. And then, he was about 93, 90, 94, and was working in his shop, tinkering around. And then the next day, like, he fell asleep and he didn't wake up. In our mind, that's like the perfect end. Is you have your years all the way to the end. And I think nowadays you could almost pick when that would be, but having those years and compressing those end years to not prolong so brutally. If you look at life expectancy right now, I think that number is about 78, and it has gone further. There's some data that shows it's kind of digressed a little bit, but the crazy thing is it's like that there's a crossing point where health span and lifespan kind of collide, and you have like the quality of years just falls off a cliff. And usually it's about 10 years. Like, the last 10 years of people's lives, like, yes, we added some years as far as longevity goes in lifespan, but that health span just like drops. They don't have their health resilience. They're not able to do the things that they want to do. If you're ever just like held back by your health, that that should never be the case. And I think there's a Chinese proverb that says, if you have your health, you have 1,000 wishes, versus if you don't have your health, you have one wish. Just so like you create an endless opportunity when you can keep good quality health.
Hey, business owners, did you know there's 76.5 million faith-based and conservative consumers that are looking to support brands that align with their values?
That's a $5 trillion opportunity, and if you're not tapping into it, you're leaving money on the table. Our new book, Liberty Spenders, is your ultimate guide to reaching this influential audience using conviction-driven marketing.
That's right. We break down real-world strategies that successful brands are using right now to connect with this audience authentically, build trust, and drive long-term business growth.
So if you're truly serious about standing out in today's crowded market, grab your copy today on Amazon or visit libertyspenders.com.
Well, and we're all about making impact here. And that's including, having a healthy business, one that can grow and thrive. And again, we all need our health in order to do the same thing and to be able to have the impact we want on our families, our communities, our faith communities. So it's obviously just such an important topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a guest whose episode will come out soon, and she talked about something similarly. Because and one thing that is probably, could be valuable as you guys talk about what you're doing is most people spend something like $80,000 in healthcare costs in just the last week of their life, which is creating a lot of financial problems for their living relatives, right? And sometimes those things are unnecessary. And she was talking a little bit of it from that perspective, like, don't spend $80,000 to get 2 more days, But to what you're talking about with your grandfather, right? The idea that we don't have to rack up these giant medical bills in the last 10 years of our life. We can live them with vigor until the end is so exciting. I mean, that's the experience we all want, right? Like, I want to go to sleep one night nice and peaceful and just wake up getting to see Jesus, right? That's what we want. And I didn't think about any of that stuff until I hit 40-ish. I knew I needed to lose weight or anything, but I wasn't really thinking about death. I wasn't thinking about seeing grandkids, right? Until you're in your 20s and 30s, you just think you're going to live forever, right? and then when I hit 40, I thought, no, wait a second, I don't want to spend the next 30 years of my life saying things like what you're talking about, like, oh, I'm just getting older, or I can't keep up. And of course, we started our family late. We got 2 toddlers, so I'm a 45-year-old man with a 2-year-old, And so,
He's almost 3, almost
yeah,
3.
I don't even have to be chasing him around for the next 15 years. And I want to be doing that with joy. And I want to see his kids, right? Which means I need to live well into my 80s probably to make that happen. So it's such an important topic. And I honestly think, I've never been a conspiracy guy. And I'm just starting to get to the point where I realize we've just not gotten the truth about our health. And maybe there's innocence there in a sense. But when I start getting exposed to this idea that we can be proactive, we can look at things like stem cells and peptides and acupuncture, and we don't have to see them with suspicion, right? And we know, by the way, that my biggest confirmation that this stuff was legit was finding out that the pharmaceutical companies want to control the peptide space. I thought, well, they can't both simultaneously discourage use and also say, oh, wait a second, I want to have a monopoly.
Right. I just don't want anybody else to get into this.
Right. It's we be careful. Oh, but wait a second, we're going to try to take these through the process and and make it impossible for other people to be in that business. So,
Well, the biggest example of that is GLP-1s, right? And so I know you guys have experienced that with, being able to have your own compounds of things that are at the end, the effective ingredient, of what's in some of these drugs. How have you experienced that? What's the biggest overreach you've seen, and how should people be aware of that to combat it?
Oh yeah. So yeah, we've gone through a couple different shifts. In kind of pre-COVID 20, uh, yeah, and even during COVID is when we noticed a lot of things change. But in the stem cell world, it was always kind of like, and stem cell therapy in and of itself is still somewhat banned in the US. Um, but what is available is like you essentially what you can go out of the country for is if you culture stem cells, which in our research and our data, we haven't seen that be a huge difference maker versus some of the stem cell procedures we're able to do is through umbilical cord tissue. So it comes from C-sections. Baby's born, no harm's done to the baby, and we're actually able to use what's traditionally known as birth waste, like it just gets thrown in the trash. It's like this amazing life force there in that umbilical cord tissue. There's stem cells, there's different cytokines, proteins, and amino acids that can really help promote health. But essentially, what's happened there in kind of 2019, 2020, FDA came out and there was, kind of different clinics going around toting they were doing stem cell therapy and some were doing amazing stuff for people. There was some bad actors that were saying they were doing something that they really weren't. Like, you can inject saline and say it's something and yeah, that's there's definitely some issues with that. The other thing they were over promising, like, we're gonna you know, the overpromising was also kind of an issue. Whereas, if you look at what stem cells do in the body, like our recovery mechanisms as stem cells, you get an injury, you get a cut, your body's natural healing response is to send signals. They're called chemokines, and it'll say, "Hey, I have an injury here. Help me out." It actually pulls stem cells and it pulls your body's healing systems into action. And so essentially, especially as we age, our body's ability, our stem cell counts drop significantly. I think the count is when you're a newborn, you have like 1 in 1,000 cells as a stem cell, versus by the time you hit 60, it's 1 in 2 billion cells as a stem cell. So your body's own recovery mechanisms, like that kind of answers the question of why, as I get older, do I not recover as fast? And a lot of it has to do with those stem cells and stem cell production. And so if we can find a damaged area and inject it in the right place, we can like really help activate your body's own healing mechanisms and really help create some support. So that's kind of the concept around it. But what there was some issues there. The FDA came out and said, like, you can't essentially, there's some kind of ways around it, but essentially you can't do stem cells banned, essentially. Most recently, we've seen Utah come into action and say, "Hey, we're going to protect healthcare providers that want to do stem cells. They have to, make sure the person knows it's not FDA approved. You have to sign some consent forms, obviously, which any medical procedure you're going to have to do that. But um, the safety profile is extremely safe. Like literally, we've done uh, like I couldn't even tell you how like thousands of injections, probably tens of thousands. No really known issues. There's obviously any injections, there's risk of infection or things, but man, it's been just an absolute game changer. But the FDA came out and because of, and I think it's more of a lack of understanding and knowledge of what it's doing as opposed to someone it's more of a fear-based thing. So you do have big pharma that's like, "Hey, I don't want this in my playground. Get this out of here." But I think it's more of the unknown and in the medical world, um, in America, we're usually about 20 years behind the research because, we have to design uh, a placebo group, a multifaceted study to actually prove like, hey, this works. And when you look at stem cells, there's actually a ton of white papers. You go on PubMed, you can read all about all these different stem cell procedures and things. But the safety profile was unknown, and so the FDA is like, hey, we don't want this happening anymore. Here's all that you can do. And they labeled out, some very strict guidelines around it. And then since then, Utah's come out that we've, it's, I see it a lot more commonly now. But even like we scrubbed our website. You can't see anything about stem cells on our website just because we don't want to get letters from the FDA. But at the same time, that relationship between a patient and a doctor is their relationship, and as long as we let them know, like, what it is and how it works, and, it's extremely safe, but that's, like, one example where there was some, pretty steep overreach, and then, you know, as well on the peptide front,
That's what I'm more familiar with because we haven't taken it. I mean, I've not even looked into anything with stem cells, so that's a whole separate set of issues and topics.
yeah, with peptides, they've taken quite a few of the very common used peptides, and they've put them into a category 2 or a category 3, which sends a signal to compounding pharmacies, hey, don't compound this. We don't
Uh-huh.
want you to compound this because the jury's out as far as safety goes. And it's kind of the same story where they either haven't looked at the data fully or that someone slipped them a study that said, there's some danger, there's some potential negatives, and usually those are funded by certain groups. Um, but but yeah, like it's pretty crazy how easy that gets manipulated, and so you have these peptide products that are kinda taken off the shelves. Most recently, the GLP-1s, those have been game changers from a weight loss perspective, like, your tirzepatide, semaglutide, or the common known as Ozempic, Mounjaro.
Mhm.
Those are, the name brand medications on them. And what's happened, there was a shortage at one point, and so compounding pharmacies were able to compound that. With us, we're adding in some other, whether it's vitamins or different amino acid chains along with the peptide. Just it can be helpful to add those in, but also that kind of gets around that medication shortage issue. But yeah, they said there was a shortage, and so they opened it up to compounding pharmacies. Most recently, they've said, okay, the shortage is over, so you can't do that anymore. And then you have different big pharma groups that are suing other compounding pharmacies that are manufacturing their or that are making their kind of patented medication. But what's interesting is you can actually patent a peptide because it's just a string of amino acids. It's naturally occurring in the body. And so you can't necessarily put a patent on that. What they can patent is the application and how it's used and prescribed. And so that's what essentially they're trying to control. But yeah, and it's pretty cool how these peptides work. Like, maybe I should explain what a peptide is to the audience.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Should have thought to give you a little glossary. Yes.
So a peptide, they're just small chains of amino acids that that create signaling in the body. So if you think about like a hormone, that sends signals from different organs and glands for certain function to happen. So if your hormones are out of whack, that's going to cause problems. If they're optimal, then your organs and different systems and glands are going to be working more appropriately. When it comes to peptides, very similar. They're small, just little chains of amino acids that naturally occur in the body. But once again, as we age, things start to dysfunction. And so, if we can send the right signals in the body, we can essentially help the body, the cell to cell communication improve. And so, how, take for example, the GLP-1s or your tirzepatide or semaglutide. Those, my preference would be tirzepatide because it has two different peptides compounded. So it's gastrointestinal peptide as well as your glucagon like peptide. So the GLP with GIP. But essentially what that does is it helps with the signaling of your body to say it's full. Like I feel satiated, I'm not hungry. So it kind of takes that little gremlin that's on your back every day saying, "Hey, you got to eat more. Like get me a cheeseburger or whatever it is." It kind of it tames that down. So that's helpful. And then people can actually make some lifestyle enhancements and improvements through that. Now, the way big pharma is prescribing that is they like to prescribe their medications. And so typically you'll start lower and then you'll really increase and then you're on that for essentially life. Now, with our approach, we like to cycle things on, cycle them off, and cycle them on again. So and that keeps those pathways really primed so they can be sensitive to those peptides in the future, as opposed to just you're on the same peptide for months on end, that you're going to create some resistance and some, yeah, either you're going to have to up the medication over and over, and then essentially could potentially be kind of dependent on that versus if we can just cycle on, we do 30 to 60-day cycles, and then we'll take a break and switch to a different peptide based on the lab work and based on what your body's telling it needs. But those peptides, they're just super impactful at helping increase communication in the body. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer.
No, it's a great distinction because, as someone who's been following more of this, that is a large concern of many people, especially with those specific drugs that you mentioned, is what happens when people are getting off of it and they're gaining weight back or all these other issues that are unforeseen or that you're losing fat and or you're losing muscle mass, I'm sorry, and not dealing with that. And so I think what's really great about what you just shared is, again, a different approach because you're not just incentivized to keep somebody on, a certain prescription or drug or whatever the terminology you would use. And so that's a great thing that you shared. Well, I want to dig into the business side some. We love talking about business here. So, I know this has been such a big thing and you guys have seen, a broken system and you've used all those things to build your business. But what is one thing that a business lesson you would learn that maybe you've had to learn the hard way in building your business that you think other people should know?
All right. Well, there's a lot. So where do I start? Now, yeah, I think especially in healthcare, like the software systems and those things. There's some robust systems that have been built for kind of the hospital and insurance world. We're not we don't work inside the insurance world just because we would have our hands tied. And so We have, some of those systems we've had to develop things over time, but really a big learning experience has been, don't accrue too much tech debt. We've kind of brought on we have this system that worked well for us years ago. It's just not scaling with us, and so I'm going through the pain points of working with another tech group to develop a better software. And a lot of it, especially with AI integrations now, it's really fascinating because we can um, add AI into a closed loop network, so it's not like communicating externally, but we can add some education into how people interact with their health data, as well as how our providers can interact with it, and just have data at our fingertips as opposed to having to open up documents and, look at 5 different labs and try to assess what we're looking at versus we can have someone assess all of those 5 labs, give us the summary, and then we can make, better decisions there. So that's something like a big learning. The other one,
Tech debt.
yep,
Got
tech
it.
debt. So, keep up, with your technology, otherwise you incur some serious debts there. And now it's like time to pay the Pied Piper on the
Right.
technology debt that we've accrued. So that's like a one example. Another one that we haven't necessarily shared, publicly, but I think it was a huge learning experience for us. In 2018, we got a proposal from a, private equity group to their whole pitch was, "We're gonna help you grow, and, we'll be able to help a lot more people." At that point, we had, 5 different locations throughout Utah and, 1 in, New Mexico as well. And so we had, kinda scaled to more, brick and mortar. Now, obviously, we work virtually all over the world, but, then it was a lot more, um, just locally. And so, we entertained that. Pretty soon after we, engaged with them, it was, like and one thing we learned is don't give up too much control, because we
Right.
gave up way too much. And it was, we thought our values aligned, and they wanted to really, like, they were in it to help people as opposed to just make money. And, essentially, pretty soon after we did that partnership, they started, like, almost forcing us to start adding in these new insurance procedures that paid a big, paycheck. And, essentially, they're looking at data and saying, "Okay, this code pays a lot of money, reimburses quick and easy, do more of that." And so you find
Mhm.
yourself just, like, almost focusing on, "Okay, I need to find someone that needs this. I need," like that. I kinda experienced the healthcare system on the flip side there. And so we had to figure out a way out of that. And, yeah, we ended up, giving away uh, 4 of our 5 locations. We kept
Wow.
our Salt Lake, location just so we could just be done with it and out. And it wasn't like it wasn't this, like, nice, check that got written up front. It was, more, um yeah, just the whole scenario wasn't, ideal, but it was an amazing learning experience to make sure that we have values aligned if we're ever gonna partner with anyone. We also learned that, maybe that's not for us. Reagan and
Right.
I are a little too cowboy for kind of the corporate overlords. Um,
Right.
but yeah, we learned, make sure your values align as well as, make sure the future goals align, because we had this vision that we thought we were on the same page, that we were going to grow, east west, and that model and that vision. And it very quickly turned into, okay, well, there's like low hanging fruit here with these different services and procedures. And, yeah, we're going to get insurance in, and that's how we can increase our multiples and things like that. That's not why we got into to health. So anyways,
Mhm.
those were some big learning experiences for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're not the first person I've heard give similar advice. So maybe this is just a rite of passage you've got to go through.
That's probably what it is.
I think that's a good caveat as we get into our lightning round rapid fire section. So it's such a good caveat what you were just talking about, because the first thing we'd like to ask about is what legacy you hope to leave behind from your work at East West.
Yeah. So, I we look at if we can impact individuals' health in a bigger scale. So the reason why most of our clients are entrepreneurs and business owners, they're influencers over their sphere. And if we can influence them to create better health resilience for their audience and their clients or customers, and we just see we can make a huge impact on the world to just make it a healthier place. Have like if because if we make health a priority, and the world is just a huge landscape of opportunity versus if we're kind of stuck in just trying to figure out what we can do with our health.
Yeah. And I'd like to invite you also to talk about something that maybe has caught your eye recently, something outside of the health space that you're in. Maybe it's a hobby that you're keen on, a good book you read, something you saw, but something that's caught your eye or keeping your attention.
I think one thing that is super fascinating right now is what Elon Musk is doing at Doge, and
Oh,
Yeah.
let's hear it. Yeah.
just I and it's bizarre some of the findings that they're seeing of what our taxpayer money has been paying for. It's really frustrating to hear some of those things. I hopefully it's reality. I more get some of that content from X as opposed to like watching the news or something. I'm not a big news watcher, but that's been super interesting and fascinating to me, is just seeing some of the government waste and what we've spent. We've sent foreign money to do different educational programs or campaigns, or it almost seems like indoctrination on different things that is it's frustrating, but it's also relieving to see that like we're pointing it out, and then hopefully there can be a solution on it. It does seem like Congress is not really moving like I thought they would. When you see all that stuff, a lot of it is,
Right.
there's a lot of hate going towards Musk and Doge on from different angles. But yeah, I'm really fascinated by what's going on there, and it's interesting to see and hear about.
Oh yeah, it's super fascinating. It's like a political reality show
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
exactly what it
And
is.
yeah. And I'll tell you, as someone who, just as, because why not? My own thoughts on it has just been, as Republicans, we've talked about efficiency for a long time. And we've known that these government departments waste a ton of money, but it's not politically expedient to do anything about it. You know, if you save money by shaving off staff, it saves the taxpayers money, but it also leaves a few thousand people unemployed, and that never goes over well, and that impacts their lives negatively. But I'm excited to see us dealing with it, because the reality is that our debt service is overcoming our federal budget. And until we balance the budget and ideally have a surplus, we're never going to pay any of this back. And it's only a matter of time before there's just no more money left, or where we're forced to print cash to pay our bills, which will create an inflationary spike like we've never seen. So I think I'm excited about it. We'll see if it goes anywhere. I mean, I was real
Well,
excited.
and there's fallout, and there will be mistakes. I mean, there have already been mistakes. There will be more. And it can be very difficult for people who see the good. Because again, some of this, it was meant to have influence in the world, to be helpful to other countries, to earn goodwill, all these other things. Um, And it can be difficult to say, well, do we no longer care about this? Do we no longer care about fighting disease or helping some of these people get clean water, or how heartless are you? And I struggle with that sometimes, just in full transparency, that because, of course I care about those things, but ultimately, like, we don't want to be bankrupt. I mean, we have to. I mean, we've been living in la la land for so long in terms of the budget and what money we have. And so I could make that same case of, well, gosh, Kurt, do you not care? You don't want our kids to have, memories and go on these great vacations, or maybe that's a bad example, but, some other thing that I could justify, but ultimately you have to be fiscally responsible also. And
Yeah.
so when it comes down, at the end of the day, that's what matters, is aligning. Okay, well, what do we believe as American citizens and taxpayers? What do we want our role to be? And whatever that is, let's make sure it's aligned with what we can afford.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we need to get this under control. And then if we still want to fund those things, okay. But we've just been irresponsible. Again, both parties, all sides. So I'm equally excited, but some of it makes me sad. Even though I recognize ultimately what has to get done.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking at it from, fiscal responsibility, it's like, yeah, you have an opportunity to donate to all these charities, but if you are incurring debt to pay those charities, like, is that really a smart move?
Right. Yeah. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and then I wanted to end. This is a gratuitous opportunity to talk about Ageless Future and East West Health. Do 90 seconds. Somebody's listening. Why should they reach out to you? How do they reach out to you?
Awesome.
So they know how to do it.
Yeah. So if you're someone that wants to have better performance, better cognitive performance, memory, energy levels, or even if maybe you just don't have those. If you're starting to notice your health's in decline, maybe you want to lose some weight. Reach out to us. Go to agelessfuture.com. We actually have a discount code for Liberty Spenders listeners. We go to agelessfuture.com/Liberty. You'll get $250 off the initial longevity blood labs. It'd be
Woo!
awesome for
Hey,
you. Yeah.
hey, that's nice.
So that's a gift to the listeners there. We're looking to work with people that want to make impact in the world, that want to have better health, and they see by having better health they can make a bigger impact, because that's how we can make that's how we accomplish our vision and purpose at East West, is by creating those lifetime relationships and really helping individuals and communities just really excel their health so they can perform better for their respective groups.
Well, I'm excited for that, and thank you for the generous giveaway to our listeners. Thank you so much, Cade, for joining as well. And I'll just repeat that: to get in touch with Cade, hit him up at agelessfuture.com, or you can find him on X at Cade Archibald. And don't forget to take advantage of the $250 discount on the blood labs. Kristin took them, and she'll give you the 2 thumbs up.
Yes. agelessfuture.com/Liberty. Got to go to that landing page. But yes, I highly recommend, if this is at all interesting or intriguing to you, check it out, look into them. They have been wonderful to work with. And my practitioner, who I meet with regularly, Dr. Cade, is awesome. So I'm always telling Reagan that she's so fantastic. She gives great care. So highly recommend it. And thanks again. Learned a lot. Thanks for sharing so much and being so transparent, Cade, too, about just the fun world you live in. And for those of you tuning in, we appreciate your time. If you found value in this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss anything in the future. And again, thanks for tuning in. You can also join us at libertyspenders.com and learn more about how you too can engage this amazing audience. Until next time.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Liberty Spenders podcast. If you're a business owner, we hope today's conversation gave you valuable insights on how to grow your business.
If you enjoyed the show, do us a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. It really helps us reach more entrepreneurs and leaders like you who are ready to make an impact.
And write something flattering, because I read them all. Don't forget to grab your copy of Liberty Spenders too, available now on Amazon and at libertyspenders.com. It's packed with proven strategies to help you reach the 76.5 million consumers who are looking for brands that share their values.
We'll see you next time as we continue exploring how to grow your business with purpose and conviction.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode and the one after that.